Vice President and furniture connoisseur J.D. Vance just turned on Donald Trump over the Epstein files. And if you want the truth about Trump and Epstein made public, or if you just think Vance is a moron that has no clue what he's doing as vice president, get some wine and cheese ready. You're going to delight in this breaking story one way or another. This is the David Reddish Show. Welcome to the show, my beautiful Occupy Democrats viewers. I'm David Reddish. Remember, in case you hadn't heard, Occupy Democrats spun me off to my own show, so make sure to subscribe to my channel to make sure you stay up to date on all the major news coming out of Washington. Besides, once I hit 500,000 subscribers, we're having a party. So have some good wine on hand for that too. But okay, let's get to our breaking story, shall we? It takes us back to the mire known as the Epstein files. You may recall that last week, the Department of Justice released thousands more documents concerning the world's most famous sex offender. Among them, new allegations of sexual misconduct or outright assault by Donald Trump himself. The documents also reinforced the notion that Trump and Epstein were very close friends and that Trump knew about Epstein's crimes. Nevertheless, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who used to be Donald Trump's personal lawyer, mind you, and who met with Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, just before she was suddenly transferred to a cushy minimum security prison last year, Blanche, in an interview about the files on Fox News, said this.
Is there any chance that any of these individuals who partied with Epstein and engaged in relations with minors will be prosecuted?
Well,
Any chance?
I'll never say no, and we will always investigate any evidence of misconduct. But as you know, it is not a crime to party with Mr. Epstein. And so as horrible as it's not a crime to email with Mr. Epstein. And some of these men may have done horrible things. And if we have evidence that allows us to prosecute them, you better believe we will. But it's also the kind of thing that the American people need to understand, that it isn't a crime to party with Mr. Epstein. It isn't a crime to have lunch.
Didn't look like that's all that was going on some of those photos. I mean, if the photos could speak, some of them look pretty bad.
That's right. And unfortunately, photos can't speak. And so we need witnesses.
Feeling icky yet? At this point, I would not be surprised if Blanche leaves an oily residue on his bed sheets. And it gets even more oily, so stay with me here. Among the new files are also new photographs and allegations of misconduct by Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew. Enter racist Care Bear J.D. Vance to this story. This week, Vance met with the UK outlet The Daily Mail for a wide-ranging interview. In it, he had some choice words, including these about Alex Pretty, an ICU nurse shot to death while protesting ICE agents. Vance had previously labeled him a terrorist.
Well, again, I just described to you what I said about Alex Pretty, which is that he's a guy who showed up with ill intent to an ICE protest.
No, but if it's determined that his civil rights were violated by this FBI investigation, will you apologize to that?
So, if this hypothetical leads to that hypothetical leads to another
it's a real case.
Will I do a thing?
Classy, right? What's this have to do with Epstein? Getting there. First, Vance might think he looks strong there by refusing to apologize, but in reality, he just looks more and more like a nasty rodent of some kind. No wonder Republican voters are souring on his potential 2028 run. Again, see our other videos for more on that. But it's what Vance said in the rest of the interview that should have Epstein truthers and President Syphilis very interested. Check this out. In the Daily Mail interview, journalist Philip Nato raises the specter of Epstein, though Nato, since he writes for a UK outlet, had more questions about the involvement of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor than Donald Trump. And when pressed, Vance had some interesting thoughts on the subject. Congressional Democrats have floated the idea of Prince Andrew testifying before Congress to get him to reveal more about Epstein's activities. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has had similar thoughts. When asked about the idea of the former prince testifying, Vance said, quote, "I saw Keir Starmer said something about this. I'm certainly open to it. I'll let them determine whether they should talk to Prince Andrew. I'd certainly be open to it, but it's their call, not mine," closed quote. So why is this so bad for Donald Trump? Because to date, Attorney General Pam Bondi, as well as Todd Blanche and Trump himself, have all said no more investigations into Epstein. And yet Vance is now encouraging just that, and before Congress no less. Can you imagine the global attention and uproar if Andrew Mountbatten Windsor went before Congress and was forced to testify about what he knew about Epstein, Trump, and the many parties, some with underage women, the pair had at Mar-a-Lago? What do you suppose he would say? And this comes on the heels of new evidence that suggests First Lady and flop movie star Melania Trump was actually introduced to Donald by Epstein and may have been one of Epstein's girls as well. This story proves two things. First, the Epstein onus is like a bad rash that just gets angrier and angrier the more Trump tries to deny it. And second, it proves Vance is a moron, though that might have been self-evident at this point. Someone just tell that man to go home and lay on the couch. We will all be happier. And as for what this means for the Epstein saga, stay tuned and subscribe. It looks like the intrigue is just starting to boil. This is the David Reddish Show.